Welcome back, everybody. And those of you who haven't been to any of these before or missed one, I just want to let you all know that they are on YouTube. So you can go out and catch up on what you missed. And please do take it. If you want to use it for your organization, it's on YouTube. It's out there for you all to help you. So please, again, we put a lot of work into getting this out there for you. And I'm really proud that it's got on YouTube. Again, we're session 4. I'll go over quickly like what we learned a little bit. Today, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're not going to be spending so much time me talking. We're going to spend probably half the time in breakout rooms and debriefing for the breakout rooms. So you guys are going to be looking at things. I'm going to teach you guys a last couple bits of information to be able to use your results to tell a story. And then I'm going to give you guys some results. I'm going to have you guys look at them and tell me what the story is being said there. I'll give you some tips on what to look for, and then we'll come back from that. We'll debrief. You guys can give me your aha moments, your anything you thought, and then we'll move on to the next group. So, get ready for a ride today. That being said, quick virtual logistics. I thought I got this. Just your usuals. I'm not going to spend much time. You guys know, please mute your microphones when you're not speaking. Please, keep your, feel free to keep your camera on so we can see you, especially if you're asking a question as it is. I always add in the law of 2 feet. We're all adults. If you have something more important you need to take care of, go do it, and just take care of it. I'm not, I'm not a kindergarten teacher. You don't need to raise your hand. You need to ask. Just do it. Going through again what we did for so far. First, we talked about what to measure. Gordon did a great job taking us through talking about how to determine what you should measure. And then Dr. Golston Sampson came in. He told us how we should measure that, like how good tips for getting a good measure that you can use and be actionable. And then last week we had Bob come in. Bob taught us about comparisons, benchmarks, and goals. So we could figure out, use the, after we've measured, we could figure out, how well we're doing in comparisons. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about, using your results to tell a story. And to do that, I'm going to teach you about trends and segmentation. Next week, Dr. Susanna will be coming in, and she's going to talk about feedback comments. And this is not just for examiners, this is for applicants, this is for anybody who reads a feedback report. So that way you understand both what goes into these feedback comments, what they mean when we write certain things, and also you can get good feedback from them and you can understand the way we think as examiners when we put these together, because that helps you think about the results also. Lastly, Dr. Laura McNeil will come in, and she's going to talk about, take us kind of back up. We've gotten down into the weeds here. She's going to take us back up into the big picture and talk about how results and process interact. So we kind of come full circle when we come out of Dr. Laura's presentation. So that being said, your objectives for this week, really, I want you guys to understand what makes a trend and what it tells you. I also want you guys to understand the importance of data segmentation and what you can do with it. And lastly, you're going to learn how to use trends, comparisons, and segmentations to tell a result story. Framework being used, again, we're all through the Sterling Management Framework, and particularly we're using what's called Let's See, which I'll tell you about in a minute, which is the way we score for results, the dimensions we look at. Those of you who've been an examiner, you all know ADLI rather well. If you've been on site and you had to, you've done Let's See also to figure out how do you score those results. But they're also used for how you analyze them, and we'll get into that. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chats. I got Gordon watching for me, and we'll try to answer them as fast as possible. So let's talk about the importance of results real quick. I mean, what can your results tell you? I mean, we all know, results can tell you a whole heck of a lot. I mean, what your processes are producing. Again, Bob last week talked to us about, how like your processes are built perfectly to create the results you get. So whatever your process is built like, that's the results you'll get. If you have a process that allows variability, you'll have variability. If you have a process that's not performing well, it'll not, you won't have good results. Again, you're going to see how you're performing. It's going to tell you how you've improved as we go through time. That's when our trendings come in. It's going to tell you how competitive you are, what your blind spots may be, what parts of the organizations may need some help. What customers are you serving well and not so well? What impact has your process performance had on other processes, work systems, and your performance overall? And so much more. It's a lot you can get from looking at your output metrics and your outcome metrics to figure these out. And that's what we're going to go over today. We're going to kind of piece these all together. So, I talked about Let's See earlier. Let's See stands for levels, trends, comparisons, and integration. And these are the 4 factors used for scoring results in Sterling and Baldrige, but they're really just breaking things down by analysis. And you've learned a lot about it already, even if you haven't, known. If you didn't know, you've learned just by going through the earlier sessions. The first session, Gordon has taught us about measuring what is important, and that's really half of that last bit, that integration. It's like, what's important? Why isn't it? Why should I be measuring it? And that's the half the battle. Samson's taught us how to measure, including data normalization, which covers your levels. Putting you in a place where you can, look at your data and use comparisons and use, your trends to figure out what's going on. And then last week, Bob taught us the importance of comparisons and how to use them to determine our performance. So what's that leave us? Well, we didn't talk about trends. So that's what we're going to do this week. And we didn't talk about segmentation, which is the other half of integration. So what does this Let's See look like? This is it right now. It's this. This gives you a really good illustration of Let's See. Let's See. So you look at the levels. The easiest place to see levels is look at the scales. What does the scale say? It tells you what kind of measures. Like here, it's percent. It's a graduation rate, so everything's in percent. That tells you the scale. How the measures are being made, and and it also sets you up so now you can have relative performance against other measures. Trends are just your levels over time. How have your levels changed as you move forward in time? Comparisons are, here, if you look specifically, that's what your benchmarks are. And I got 2 of them on this slide. I've got state average and state top decile to set up and let you know how you're doing against it. And then integration is shown in the importance of, graduation rates, period. I mean, if you're a high school, and this is what, I have imagined here. If you're a high school, graduation rates are pretty much what you're about. You're trying to get your students graduated on to move on. And, it's also in your segments, because English language learners is a very important segment to many schools, especially here in the state of Florida. So being able to look at this key segment and see how this key segment works on the overall performance is a great way to look at integration. So that's the basics of Let's See. What does it look like? To tell you the truth, it's not on the surface, on the high level, it's not that complicated. But once you start going down into it, that's where everything starts getting more important, and everything gets being, all the details come in. But at the top level, you look at it, it's not that hard to determine, like, okay, that's what a level is, that's what a trend is, that's what a comparison is. Now, the hard stuff is figuring out what a relevant comparison is. The hard part is figuring out what your data segments you need to look at are, and how important this is, and how it interacts with other pieces. So we're going to go a little bit into all these pieces today. So first up, trends. Trends are just tracking your performance across time. When you're looking at your trends, key considerations are cycle time. Months, weeks, years, days. Is it the right cycle time for any seasonal variations in your business? If you have a lot of snowbirds coming in, we're in Florida, if we have a lot of snowbirds, and that affects seasonal variation. Is it hidden, by taking your yearly, doing a yearly average or a yearly count or whatever it is? Or, do you need to take a look at those variations across your seasons? And does that cycle time allow for comparison? Sometimes, you can't have a seasonality because all you can get for comparisons are yearly, where, monthly would be great, but all you can see is yearly. Other consideration is how many data points to consider. This is always the big question I have in training from everybody is how many data points do you want? And my response is always, How many do you need to tell your story? That's the real key. Generally, when we talk trend, we want 3 data points. Great, perfect. What happens if you don't have 3 data points? That's okay. You started a new process last year. You got a new plant. You got a new store. You have a new employee class. Okay, you don't have data for 3 years. I don't need 3 years of data. Give me what you have. And you always have to work with what you have. But your story's just going to be very flat because you're not going to have a lot of information there, and that's okay. That's where you are. So you try to get at least 3, because that'll tell you stuff, but you want to use as many points as it is to tell your story. And our exercises will show you that. And also don't cut off before the last complete cycle. If the last cycle is an hour, just mention it and talk to it because it's important. You might have started a new, you might have broke the cycle. Last year was COVID. It broke the cycle for everybody. And it's okay. And it's okay to mention it. And it's okay to have it, In banking and real estate and lending, they came up with a new term. We all know, those of us who've been in finance know EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Now they have EBITDAC. And that's all of that plus COVID. So earnings before income taxes, depreciation, amortization, and COVID. Because they didn't want to use a COVID year to see what your performance was because everyone was hit. So they just let you write it off. And that's it. But don't hide it. Just mention it and look at it. Trending your comparisons. I think really the most high performing organizations trend their comparisons, and for very good reasons. If I go back up to here, notice how I have trending comparisons here too. So how the entire industry is doing by looking at the trend of the comparison. You could see that the state average is going down and the state top decile is going down too. And what does it tell you when you're going up but the state's going down? It tells you, that's a very good things you can investigate there. Maybe you're innovative. Maybe you have just a better system for dealing with what changes come along. Or maybe you're just lucky. You never know. Maybe you just have the demographic that's a little bit, sheltered from whatever change came through. Bob, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, that's when you train people to benchmark from last session too, that's a rookie benchmark mistake. You go out and get your benchmark and you assume that the benchmark stays static. So you're like, oh, if we get up 5% and 5%, we'll be at the benchmark level. Well, don't forget, the benchmark is probably working on improving too. That's how they got to be the benchmark. So yeah, absolutely trend those comparisons.
Yeah. It tells you a lot of good data. I mean, the most important, of course, is the most recent as it is. But again, there's that extra bit you can see from the trend line. If it's trending up and you're staying flat, they're catching up. Maybe you're at the top and you can't get any better, and they can never get to you. You're still going to be the best in the industry. But you still want to have it there. So, again, it's projections and goals. You want to set your goal on your benchmark and trending those, not just trending your own performance, but trending your benchmarks helps you set a better goal in the long run. Important and other things is these are great clues to learning, improvement, and innovation. If you're seeing moving counter to the industry trend, and you're moving more positive than they are, then that tells you a lot. You got something going on. You might have an innovation. You might want to take a look and see what you're doing that you might be able to leverage even more. So that's the basic of trends. Here's one of my trend examples to give you. As you look at it, we look on the left, DX per 100,000. Arrows on here, arrows are the good direction. So of course, you want left defects. But you look at this one on the left, and you see here we go, the top decile and the best competitor. And notice that these are 2020. So this is last year. That's the most you have is 1 year. And look what it looks like. It's just flat. And here you are going better, but you're flattening out also, which is okay. But there's not a whole lot of story here. You've got your cycle times really short. You haven't trended your comparisons. but it still tells you good information. It tells you you're doing better. It tells you you're improving over time. Where if we take a look at this on the right, this tells us a whole heck of a lot more. We've got many more cycles here. We're going back years to 2012, and we're able to see your story here. Like, this is the story. Like, this is an okay story. This is a great story. Like, look what you were able to do. That tells me you've had either learning or innovation to be able to take it where you're way above not only the top, not your best competitor, but the top decile. And you're able to see that your best competitor is losing ground and doing worse, while the top decile is, it's going down too, but not as extremely as you are. So that tells me, look at the story there. I mean, do you think there's not more information? Do you think that's not more of a story? That's why you do it. And it's important, though, that you keep focused, because if instead, this was maybe like flat for here, if you were flat, okay, then this is a good story. That's good enough. Because that would mean that this is now noise if you were flat here instead of going in this extreme, change. So, that's the basics what I want you guys to get for trends. That's why, more cycle times are better. That's why being able to trend your comparisons gives you better information, and it helps you make better decisions and set better goals. So I think I'm going to an exercise next. So I'm going to pause for any more questions.
Are they all back?
Mhm.
Yep, they're back, Anthony.
All right, welcome back. Room 6, we saw we shorted you, but we've had some late joiners. We'll be putting in with you for next time. But let's go ahead and talk about what you guys, I'm gonna have one of the groups, like either 1 or 4, who wants to go and make a quick analysis of what they saw here. Anybody? Come on. Anybody from group 1 or 4?
We're from group 1. We were all muted here. This is kind of interesting on the left, assuming this is the same data that we're looking at from the same company, same trend data.
Mm-hmm.
On the left, we've got data, it appears to be a year's worth of data.
Mm-hmm.
That's showing a big spike in this period from November of 18 through June of 19. We didn't think that, I've got my notes, I guess, covered up in terms of the questions. The units of time are different. There felt like there were not enough data points, really. I'm not sure what the data on the left is really telling us. There's not enough of a time period here on the left in terms of data points to really tell us what's going on from a trend standpoint. If you look at the data on the right, we've got lots of data points that show us on a long-term basis what's really happening from a trend standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
On the right, you can see that there was great improvement being made in the number of people that were leaving without being seen from the emergency department. And then all of a sudden in 2020, across the board, their benchmark data, went haywire in 2020 along with the company itself and their best competitor.
So Jay, what do you think happened in 2020?
COVID.
There you go.
That was our conclusion.
All right, good.
So this data might have been more useful if they had common units of time between the two charts.
Yeah, one of them was to the left. It represents one full program year, starting in July, and then on the right, you don't know if it's program year or if it's just the annual year, January to December. So it's not comparing apples to apples.
Sure. Yeah, I know. And do you know what? This is just 2 looks really at the same data. This is like a fiscal year. I've been to a couple hospitals in the state that are snowbird heavy, and you see this left without being seen. Their emergency department floods coming into the snowbird season and the flu season coincide, and everybody coming together from the other states. So that's what that's what I was imagining when I put this together. But it's just to show you the cycle time. Like look what a variation across the year looks like versus just giving us a year. It tells you a totally different story.
Yep.
By looking the same thing.
Yep.
Good. No, real good, you guys.
Yeah. One thing I did mention is that I thought there were too many data points. Like to the right, I
Mhm.
typically would like to see a 5-year trend. And then on the left, I probably would condense that but quarterly to see kind of the seasonal action.
Okay. Good.
Anthony, our group kind of decided, we felt that we noticed the trends decreasing between after 2014, and we thought there may be some sort of improvement process going on there.
Yeah, definitely. That's good. And if you were the company putting this together, looking at your own data, maybe you need to go and see this is what do we do in that time, and how well did it work. If you're an examiner looking at a company, I'm going to ask you that in the results call. So what did you guys do to make sure that to get the improvement you have between 2014 and 2019? And then I ask that question. Even though I know the answer, I'll ask the question, what do you think, what happened in 2020 that jumped all your numbers? So, all right. Excellent, excellent. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Breakout rooms 2 or 5.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk. Amy did a great job of bringing in there. So the graph on the left there, almost TMI, really difficult to see what kind of trend is there. I mean, the cycle time is the same on both of these. They're both year over year, 18 through 20, but the chart on the right really paints a whole better picture. And, I think what is there, 36 data points if you really want to consider it that way, but 12 monthly, year over year. And to your point, the increase in blue there was in 18. So this is left without being seen. I don't know that we can wholly assume that this was due to COVID, even though it was in December, and that was when we saw really that uptick in the hospital, because there's a trend upwards every single December. It may be regular flu, it could be some other factors, but I do know that we just actually saw less patients in the emergency room in the months of December, January, February, March, because of the hesitancy to come here, if you will. So I don't know, is this real data or is this fictitious?
No, I'm not gonna, I couldn't give you guys real data. I wouldn't want to.
Okay. But certainly is a great representation. The second overlay year over year or laid year over year, so that visually you can really compare one year to the next. Yeah.
And to that point, we were even talking about how you could have, because it was very clean, that year over year line graph, you really could overlay a couple more years and it could still be very legible and give you even more trend information. Like you could, and not lose. But even though there's technically a lot of data points, the way it's laid out, you really feel like you're only looking at 3, right? Not 36, because you're just looking at 3 line graphs, and how is that flowing and moving? So you could, if you wanted, add another 2 years and get even more data, and not lose that visual legibility.
Yeah, excellent. Do you think anything gets lost in that picture though? Because you guys talked about 36, there's actually 39 data points, because the top quartile.
Oh, the top, yeah, the top. Yep, I think that does. Yeah. We didn't even notice it, so I'm going to go with yes, it gets lost, because none of us brought it up.
Yeah.
And
it was brought up in group 5. I'll just say that. Thank you.
Good job, group 5. Also, it's hard to tell if there's a potential for any kind of process improvement. Like that kind of stuff doesn't really jump out at you.
No, but when you do an overlay line like this, you guys hit it right. Like you can see, like, oh my God, what's here? What do I have to? And then you look and you see 2020, and you're like, okay, it's emergency departments left without being seen. That's a COVID. But the others, okay, everything's moving in, and like, okay, here's a spike here in 2018. Also, what happened here? Was it a bad flu year? Again, it helps you with questions, and unfortunately, having your quartile like this doesn't help you. This is the time where I might do a bar across for each quartile, instead, or I might do a double scale just to get you guys, a little bit better pieces going on. But again, like if you, this is kind of trying to show you guys how to organize this and what can happen if you organize it wrong. The noise gets, over here, the noise is getting amplified on the left, where it's getting decreased on the right. And you guys hit that on the head, and I threw you guys the curveball.
Yeah, you did.
So, all right, let's go to the last one. All right, who breakout room 3 or 6? Who wants to talk about what they saw here? I don't have the.
I can kind of talk to this. I was in group 3. We actually had a lot to say about these 2 bar graphs. One of the things that we kind of said was this was really loud. There was a lot of data going on. We would have probably liked to see this in a line graph more so than a bar graph. And then we were kind of tripped up too, because obviously we have 2 of the same graphs, but obviously different information. So are they 2 different, emergency departments getting, vetted against each other? We were looking at the industry top quartile. Obviously they're different throughout the year. So it's they were like, well, is one in one county or is, in state? So this one was we had a lot to discuss about these 2.
What do you think is the biggest thing that clouded the understanding between the 2? Did you notice maybe the years on the bottom are going in 2 different directions?
Yes.
So.
And then there was a 2020 and there wasn't one on the other side. And then you had, you could see improvement in some of them, but then it kind of left us kind of guessing what happened there. So another line of question we were going to be asking, if we ever saw this in an examination, what led to this improvement? Why are you below industry, standards? What did you do?
So my question is, if you're below, in this case, below better, if you're exceeding the industry top quartile, you even need to show the industry average?
No.
It just gets in the way, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. And this one shows you and I've seen this, some people look at it this way, but when you go, most of us read, English based or Spanish based or Western based, where we read, left to right. So it's just natural for us to go this way, as opposed to if you go the other way, it's just, we just not used to thinking in that direction. So seeing that extra piece, and yeah, you guys caught the missing piece. So good job. Any other thoughts with this one?
The scale is different.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was just looking at why it looks so different. I just noticed that the scale is different in the 2 charts too.
Exactly. Look at that. It's like, what happens when you mess with the scale and the numbers are different. So
yeah.
To me, it seems like the difference between the organization and the industry average, it makes it look significant. Which is only at by 7.
By throwing out 2020 with having that big jump, it allowed you to crunch the scale, bring it down.
Yeah.
That way you're better at having there. That's one of those times where maybe you say, everyone's gone through something in COVID year. Maybe we do one without it to show you what it looks like without COVID also. So good catch on that one. All right. Let's go ahead. I just want to talk about the trend objective, what we're here to talk about, to try to keep us on track, because we only got 15 minutes left, but I love the conversations. We're trying to understand what makes a trend and what it tells you. Does anybody have any final key learnings or aha moments or surprising things they learned they want to share? We have time for about one. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and move on just for the sake of time. Segmentation is breaking down your metrics across different classifications. So, we're on to segmentation. It's a little bit different. You're looking at things like your products or services, breaking it down across your customer groups or market segments, and those are different. Market segments might not be the same as your customer groups. You your customer groups could include things like, your customer life cycle, like, someone who's an engaged customer versus a new customer versus, a customer that's leaving the market somehow. Or your market segment's usually more demographic based. Your workforce groups, your departments, your work units, and, plugging back to the Sterling management system, the organizational profile can help you, really pick out those important segments because they ask about them. Right there they ask about your important segments for workforce groups, customer groups, products and services. When they ask about your sites, and your assets, that helps break down, your different, places you could be. When you look at segments, considerations is how important is that segment? It might not be an important segment. It might be somebody that you're not targeting. Whether you have their business or not, it just might not be strategically important. How do the segments differ in requirements? What makes those, like, if they have the same requirements, do you need to treat them as two different segments? Maybe, maybe not. So that helps you go there. What are the outliers at the top and the bottom? Like English language learners usually was maybe that might be your bottom key segment. That's the one you're targeting to move up. And, by moving that up, you can move the whole, up. Are segments behaving differently enough to require the segmentation? I mean, if they're behaving the exact same way, is that segmentation important? And segmentation, going back to, trends can help show learning and innovation and improvement. Segmentation can help you show deployment across the different segments. So there's your piece. Let's go take a look at the example. Looking at the defects per 100,000. Those of you who know The Office know where I got the made up things right away. But like taking a look, you can see like how the different offices and the company as a whole. Like here's the company as a whole, and like here's the Utica office is doing terribly. But the top, but they're not that far from the top decile. Their best competitors up here too. This is, but the other groups, the company as a whole is doing well. Nashville's doing well. Like that's the best competitor. I gotta get better colors on here. And here's another way to look at it. Instead of looking at it by the plants that are producing, let's take a look at our products. Across, and you can even cross these and go if you want to get really deep and you need to dig down that deep. You could look at how's 20-pound white in Scranton doing versus their 20-pound cream. And that's paper, by the way. And you could just see, you could take a look at and see what's going on and see that my Utica, like on the left, my Utica office is doing terribly. What maybe I could learn from Stanford to help out Utica and make them better, or maybe Utica is just a lost cause and I need to strategically cut it. And it helps you make those decisions by taking a look at stratified data like this. Same for here, you might be able to see things like 20 pounds white, 20-pound cream. Look at how they go. Okay, well the creams tend to be causing more problems when I look at the two creams, and even between the poundage weight, you can tell that there's a little bit different process involved in each to help you see where those process problems might be. You have your roll up to all products to tell you that, and your top decile and your best competitor. So, this is kind of what you're doing when you're doing segmentations. There's other ways to break it down. You can break it down in bars and other pieces, but this one gives you a really clear look at how your different segments are performing. And again, you might need to say, like, look at like my 20-pound cream is doing terrible. It's something I can learn either from my 10-pound cream, or from my, or from my whites that might help this process work better. Or maybe I just need to do machinery, that works on that product. So we're going to go to our exercises. We're going to go to 7 minutes because we're going to be over. Questions to consider for your assigned chart. How is the measure segmented? Is that a relevant segmentation? What information can you infer from looking at the example? And what does that say about deployment? So results storytelling tips. I'm going to go through this quickly. Again, figure out what is important and measure it. Again, go back and look at what Gordon put out to help you with that. Look what each process that you're measuring and figure out what is the desired outcome is. That's what ultimately counts as the outcomes. Group correlated result, group correlated results together, put your outcomes and your in-process measures together, put your workforce and your customers together. I actually did that up here. I put employee engagement, and then you could actually if you were looking at all three, you could look at employee engagement and then also look at customer engagement and complaints versus these same groups. Not so much for sales and accounting. I could have broken those down by, who they're selling to also. But, chain those together. Sometimes you can get some really interesting information. Product and workforce measures, who's selling what, who's producing what. And, also, look at your market and financial measures. Sometimes by chaining these, you get an extra level of information that you wouldn't get otherwise. Find a relevant comparison, to show your relative performance. It's always there. It's good to have that relevant comparison to see how you're doing. Again, we talked about it. Find the right focus for your trends. What is the good information and what is noise? That doesn't mean skip things, but at the same time, if there's things at the ends that are not relevant or they're just noise, it's okay to figure a good way to take those out. And determine if a segment is segmentation is relevant and what segments give the most information. Those are my tips. A quick example for showing your correlation. Here's like staffing levels versus left without being seen. We talked about left without seeing earlier. Look at that. Doctor staffing levels, nursing staffing levels lead to small left without being seen. Same for, look at this year as they go down, as the doctor staffing goes down and the nursing staffing goes down, more people are leaving without being seen. And when you got it back up a little bit, look, it went back down for you. And this is just another way to show it. Sometimes you want to move your scales so that way it's taken longer. There's 3 other pieces to look at. Doctor staffing and also door to doc time. Door to doc time is the amount of time it takes for you when you come in the emergency department door until you're seen by your practitioner. So there you go. So look at what happens. As your doctor staffing levels are higher. And as they get lower, your door to doc time gets up. They have more people to see. They don't have enough time to see them, and then their left by being seen goes up.